There's an old philosophy that says, woe to the nation when the ruler becomes the king. And a lot of people believe that that philosophy, that woe to the nation aspect, is anchored in the idea that when the slave becomes the king, the slave's going to get revenge. But it doesn't seem to be the case historically speaking. Historically speaking, when we look back over the number of centuries of human history, what we find is that people have moved, especially as an individual, from a place of being enslaved, mistreated, abused, whether it's as an employee or as a genuine slave. When they've moved into a position of authority, it doesn't seem that they get revenge on the previous master or the previous leader or the previous employer. Instead, they tend to implement the same kinds of practices that were used against them, only now they do it even worse to the people that they are ruling over. Not necessarily revenge on the previous master. Almost always harsher treatment for the people they once served or fought alongside. Let that sink in for a minute when you think about becoming a leader. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. And I know that there are a lot of people who want leadership roles. They want to become the shift manager or the store manager or the night manager or the closing manager. They want that leadership role because it comes with a bigger paycheck. It comes with more opportunity. Many people believe that when I get that role, I'll have more ability or opportunity to make decisions about my own life. So in essence, they're looking for more liberty, more freedom, more independence. A lot of people, in fact, think that once you become the owner of the company, ollie ollie oxen free, you get to boss everybody else around, you get to tell everybody else what to do, and you don't have to do anything. But once you become the owner of the company, or the night manager, or the shift supervisor, you realize that along with that power and authority comes the third leg of the stool of leadership, and that is responsibility. You now have to have the integrity to be held accountable. And you will be. If you become the night manager at the store and you have a key, now suddenly you're what's known as a key holder. It's not just the opportunity to boss everybody else around because you're the person with the leadership title. It's also responsibility for everything they screw up. If someone working on the shift that you're the night manager of decides to steal stuff, guess who gets in trouble for that? If you can't prove who did it and give them the responsibility, then you as the manager, you get the responsibility. If you're the person in charge of production and production is falling behind, guess who's in charge? That's you. Guess who's in trouble? That's you. So your leadership role didn't just come with more power and authority, it came with a whole lot of responsibility. And sometimes that responsibility isn't sold to you in the package. You might get an extra week of vacation, you might get the ability to pick a few more days of paid time off, you might even get a bit of a bump in your paycheck. That's all awesome. But they don't tell you that you're now on the hook for everything that goes wrong. And that, unfortunately, also presents a challenge in politics. See, there are a whole lot of people that want to run for office because they feel like if I get the position, if I get the job in office, if I get elected as, I don't know, mayor, dog catcher, librarian, governor, senator, whatever, that the minute I get that, I have all these privileges, all this authority, all this power. I get to make the laws. And since I get to make the laws, I'll only make laws that are in favor of me. They don't necessarily think about all the things they're going to be held accountable for every word that comes out of their mouth, for every decision they make that seems like it's a good long-range decision for them, but has negative impact on other people in society and jobs and opportunities and national security. But they don't think about all that. They want the position because it comes with the paycheck, the power, the authority, and everybody's going to like me because they have to. See, the challenge with desiring a leadership position like that is when you underestimate the amount of accountability and the amount of responsibility that comes with that task, you'll also underestimate how much trouble you can be in if you misuse the power and authority that comes with the position. Now, we've seen just in the last few decades an evolution, even at the leadership of our country, we've seen an evolution of completely diametrically opposed worldviews. We've seen how that implementation on a national level has a global impact, but it also has an individual impact. Anybody get a stimulus check? Anybody know they're going to have to pay taxes on that? Oh, well, only certain people have to pay taxes on it. Other people actually get more money back. But that's not determined by anything other than the zip code you live in and the color of your skin. Wait, isn't that racism? Not if it benefits you, right? Is that responsible? Is that accountable? Oh, who knows, right? It all depends on the law and the way you write it today and who it is that you're trying to sweet talk today. You know, I could do the same thing if I managed a little store. I could give certain people all the good hours. If let's say I managed a restaurant, and as the shift leader, I determine that I want these 3 people to work that lunch rush and these 3 people to work that time between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. when there's nobody in the restaurant. But they're scheduled and they have to be here and they still have to clean the tables and they still have to clean the salt shakers. They still have to do all the work of being a server, but there's no customers, so they make no money. If I'm the shift manager, I get to decide that. Well, if I like these 3 people and I don't like those 3 people, that's kind of a duh, right? That's the power and authority of being the shift leader, that I get to decide who makes money and who doesn't. Beginning to ring a bell? Who gets to play in the business field and who doesn't? Who gets to come to work and who doesn't? What businesses are closed down and what businesses aren't? What kids get to go back to school and which ones don't? See, when people have authority and power as leaders, they can misuse it. They can abuse it. Now, we as average citizens, we can do something about that. It's called voting. Vote them out of there. If they don't have the integrity and the accountability to be responsible for the impact their decisions are making on we the people, we have the right and the responsibility to get rid of them. Not always the case when you're an employee. If you don't own the business, your only option is to quit and get another job or not have a job at all. That's a different level of power. But you do have the ability to report it if it's an unfair act, especially if it's an illegal act, especially if there's sexual favors involved in that act or other forms of bribery and manipulation involved in that act. I can tell you as a fact that at times in my life, I have been the victim of these kinds of manipulations in the system. This favoritism toward one employee versus another employee, I've been the victim of that. I lost a $13,000 check that should have been mine. But because they wanted to maneuver some things, some paperwork was slid one way versus another to protect a girl that was on paternity leave or maternity leave, and because she came back and lost a bunch of accounts, but I had a lot of extra money in my accounts, they kind of gave her some of mine and gave me some of hers, and it cost me $13,000. And the 3rd level up supervisor, not my boss, not my boss's boss, but my boss's boss's boss, and I had that conversation in the hallway, and his answer was, if you keep your mouth shut and you do your job right, you'll make so much more money than that it won't even matter to you. That will seem like a splash in the pan. Well, it may be true that I made a significant amount of money working there. It may be true that eventually it all worked out in the wash. But that doesn't mean it wasn't corruption. It doesn't mean it wasn't unfair. It doesn't mean that it wasn't manipulation of power and authority without being responsible. Now, if you're a leader, you've got to have the integrity to say, I'm going to do what's best for the overall organization, but not at the cost of the individual. And if there are individuals who have to make a sacrifice in order for the entire organization to stay afloat, they should at least be in on the conversation. That's about the integrity of your leadership. If you as a leader realize that you have authority and power, then you also have responsibility, and you should operate. Every decision you execute should operate with the concept that you need to be fair-minded, you need to have integrity, and you need to remain accountable. All these sliding of the shells under the table, hiding things from other people, manipulating the outcome so that it benefits you or those that you prefer, that is not justice. That is manipulation of the system, and that is known as corruption. If you're a leader who's using your power and authority without the responsibility for the overall outcome and the overall good, you're a corrupt leader. I'm just saying, facts is facts. So take a look at the way you lead. Can you say that your authority, your power, and your responsibility are all equal? Or do you find yourself using your power and authority and ignoring your responsibilities? I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith